Hey everybody, my name is Matthew Sambanis. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. And in this video, we're going to discuss the U.S. debt surpassing $33 trillion, adding on over $1 trillion alone in the last 3 months, including over $50 billion in a single day. So I thank you in advance for taking the time to watch this. I'm a certified public accountant. I've been an accountant for over 20 years, but this obviously has a lot more to do with economics and finance and things of that nature, and that happens to be my personal passion. So let's dive in, and please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you find this helpful. So we're also going to go over, by the way, what this means and how to profit. Most importantly, you care about how to make money from the U.S. debt, right? So let's talk about that. So like I said before, we have 1 trillion of debt added in the last 3 months, over 56 billion in one day. And at this rate, sooner than later, the cost to service the U.S. debt is soon going to exceed $1 trillion. To put that in proper perspective, the U.S.'s entire budget is 6.4 trillion. So we're talking about 15%, probably a lot sooner than later, 20% of that becoming allocated just to pay the debt. That's not sustainable. Just imagine it this way. You have a $500 budget. Out of that, 100 of that has to go to paying the debt and counting and compounding every day for that matter. So huge problem right there. Next is the $1 trillion in interest that we'll be spending on interest is going to exceed the defense budget, which is about $842 billion. It's going to exceed the $140 billion that we pay for veterans, which to me is just deplorable. They should be receiving a lot more, or the debt and the interest should obviously be substantially less. We spend about 1.2 trillion in Social Security, and all in, like I said, 6.3 trillion in outlays is what the US's budget is annually, and it grows every year. The issue to that, though, is the revenues that the U.S. collects is 4.9 trillion. So kind of like this. Imagine you have $500 that you make in a year, and you want to spend 600. So you run into a deficit, and that's what we have here, except these numbers are so huge, and nobody's interested in fixing it. Every time we run into a government issue or a government potential shutdown, they will say more debt, more debt, more debt. They never stop and say, what program do we cut? Do we cut Social Security? Do we cut this? Do we cut that? Do we cut some of the senators' salaries? Do we cut, ton of cuts that should be happening across the board? And they don't. They just say the only solution is more debt. And the other problem there is that they say, by the way, if we can't raise the debt ceiling, then we're not going to be able to pay our creditors. That's a Ponzi scheme, right? If you can't get more money, if you can't get more debt to pay off your old debts, that's a Ponzi scheme. And the long story short here is don't expect a happy ending, right? The U.S. is just out of control. Each president since I've grown up just becomes dumber and dumber and dumber. Each congressperson gets dumber and dumber and dumber, and I'm trying to think of how to word this delicately, but the people that we have running this country are just brain dead, and that's putting it very, very nicely. So, by the way, if I ever ran any aspect of anything, I would slash everything first 10 ways to Sunday. I would just cut program after program, and I would look to put us in a tip-top shape. I would raise interest rates to where they need to go to, but another conversation for another day. The other issue here is that they're projecting the U.S. debt to hit 50 trillion by 2030. So we're talking another 22 trillion in another 7 years. So how do we profit here? And I'm going to go more into the numbers in a little bit, but let's get to the main point of what you care about. Well, you can invest in the stock market, and on a nominal basis, I'm sure the stock market will increase with inflation. The issue there is if you own stock of Apple and it's worth a couple $100,000, except that stock of Apple, and you can buy one loaf of bread for a couple $100,000, that stock of Apple isn't worth anything. So buy gold, buy silver, buy physical assets. I've put my own money where my mouth is. I'm wearing a Yachtmaster 2, not to show it off, but Rolex Gold Yachtmaster 2. It has 8 ounces of gold in it, and I paid a premium for the Rolex name, of course, in addition to the gold. But I'm sure that once gold prices go parabolic, which they will, and that has to happen sooner than later, gold stocks will go parabolic, silver stocks will go parabolic, precious metals will go parabolic, and also eventually the U.S. is going to lose its reserve currency. So you're better off investing abroad and investing in foreign assets and investing in foreign currencies, and buy, again, you could buy assets abroad, whatever the case may be, but get out of US dollars. This is just a time bomb. There is one silver line in here, which I will get into, but if you want to profit, yes, you'll probably take a little bit of beat in the short run. If silver prices go down, buy more. I bought a bunch of silver when it was $10, $11, $12. I bought a bunch when it was $20, $23. And if it goes back down, I'm not upset that silver I spent at $20 or $23 went down. I'm excited to buy more at a discount. So some other staggering issues or staggering numbers. With 6.3 trillion in outlays, which is just such a massive number, especially when you consider that there's 350 million Americans, there's still 113,000 foreclosures happening, which is probably pretty light because a lot of these states have enacted pauses due to COVID, which is another. I disagree with it vehemently. We have 43 million people living in poverty. Obviously, we have tent city USA, especially in more, shall we call it, liberal democratic states. So you reap what you sow. And we have 27 million people without insurance, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And by the way, more likely than not, as an accountant, I have a lot of clients. If you're not making a lot of money, you should easily qualify for free health insurance. So call up your local government. They have Obamacare. I don't agree with Obamacare, but I do condone it in that people should be able to get free health insurance if they can't afford it. Listen, I have people here in Long Island, they make $55,000, $60,000 a year. That's considered a lot of money. After taxes, it's not a lot of money, and to spend another $600, $700 a month in health insurance is the difference between being able to pay the rent or not. So if you're entitled to it, please go get it. The numbers. So we have 33 trillion in debt. That doesn't account for unfunded liabilities. When you factor in the unfunded liabilities, we have 100 trillion in debt. Astronomical numbers. 33 trillion in debt works out to 100,000 in debt per U.S. citizen, and that works out to 255,000 per taxpayer. And that also equates to that 100,000 in debt per citizen means that we're collecting about 13,000 in revenue per citizen. So do the math. If you owe 100,000 out and you're earning 13,000 a year, you're not paying back that debt anytime soon, no less with interest. And same thing, 255,000 is what we owe out, is what it averages out to per taxpayer. And that is 33,000 in revenue per taxpayer that we're collecting. And again, if you owe 255,000 and you're making 33,000, guess what? You're not paying your debt anytime soon. Go bankrupt. Other debts. So we have 100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. That's Social Security, that's Medicare, that's pensions, all sorts of other egregious freebies the government decided to give away to everybody, including to government employees, which I disagree with. We have 25 trillion in personal debt. We have another 1.8 trillion in student loan debt, which is just, I guess, going to start to go back up now that payments have resumed. Another video for another day. And we have 1.6 trillion in credit card debt, which a few weeks ago, I just did a video on how credit card debt passed 1 trillion. So literally a few weeks later, we had on 600 billion of credit card debt. So those are the numbers. That's the downside there. It's going to get a little more interesting in 2 seconds. I'm going to give you the positive. The positive is that household assets are 157 trillion, right, which is a huge number. And the national assets are 197 trillion. The caveat is a lot of those household assets are real estate and the stock market. And if we all start selling our real estate, if we all start selling our stocks, assuming you have either one or both, prices are going to crash. And how, as to how they got to national assets of 197 trillion, I don't know, but obviously we're not about to sell off national assets. We don't want to do that. But the positive there, it does work out to $586,000 per person in assets. So there is some upside there, and I guess maybe that's what the people in charge keep on falling back on, or frankly, I don't think that, because I don't think they're thinking about anything. I don't even think they know how to think. And if they began to think about thinking, I don't think they know how. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to say that, and it's sad, but if you're a U.S. citizen, you see the massive inflation going on. You see everything going up through the roof. You see how terrible everything is being run, whether it's on the right side, whether it's on the left side. Everything is just going to holy hell. And I wish there was something more positive, but right now there's not. And to cap it off, China just sold more U.S. treasuries, bringing their U.S. debt down to a 14-year low. So China keeps on selling U.S. treasuries. Obviously, they view us as a competitor. I do think that it's also one of those instances where all boats rise in the sea. So if China does good, we'll also do good. But, after what happened, and not to get into politics, but how we penalized Russia, China saw what happened, and now we have BRICS going on. We have the petrodollar. We have, all sorts of new currencies going on to de-dollarize the world. And that will happen. We will pay the price. And what did China do after selling off their treasuries? They added 29 tons of gold to its reserves. So China has a long-term plan. I suggest you have a long-term plan. Buy gold, buy silver. I understand it's boring. It's going to move up slowly. But if you look at it over the last 20 years, it went from $200 an ounce to 2,000 an ounce. It's probably about 1950 around today or something of that nature. But again, buy and hold, and at some point it has to capitulate. The pressure of it, and people have to see the writing on the wall. There's no one-trick pony here. There's no easy fix to this debt. There's no easy fix, period, to these issues, and we're going to pay the price. So I'm sorry this wasn't upbeat. Hopefully you found it helpful. Hopefully you watched it till the end. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a great rest of the night. Thanks.